James St. Patrick has everything. A legitimate nightclub empire in Manhattan. A beautiful family in a penthouse overlooking the city. The respect of powerful men in boardrooms and courtrooms. He is Ghost, the most feared drug distributor in New York, and he is also, simultaneously, a man in a tailored suit shaking hands with politicians who want to invest in his vision for the future. He has spent years building two lives in parallel, convinced that his intelligence, his discipline, and his will are sufficient to keep them from colliding. He is wrong. And the 6 seasons of Power are the meticulous, unsparing documentation of exactly how and why he is wrong. Courtney Kemp created Power as something rarer than its surface genre suggests. On the surface it is a prestige crime drama, stylish, propulsive, built around the familiar architecture of the drug trade narrative. Underneath, it is a sustained examination of a specific and deeply human predicament, the man who has outgrown the world that made him but cannot fully leave it, who wants the legitimate life but cannot entirely relinquish the illegitimate one, who believes he can have both and discovers, at enormous cost, that the belief itself was the trap. Ghost's tragedy is not that he was not smart enough or disciplined enough or capable enough. He was all of those things in extraordinary measure. His tragedy is that he was never honest enough, with himself or with anyone around him, about what he actually wanted and what he was actually willing to do to get it. The lessons Power teaches are lessons about identity, loyalty, the cost of divided commitment, and the specific destruction that follows when a man of genuine ability operates without genuine integrity. Here are 5 of them. The central tension driving every season of Power is Ghost's desire to go legitimate, to exit the drug trade, to build truth into a real business empire, to become the man he presents to the world rather than the man he is in the shadows. It is a genuine desire. The show never lets you doubt that. Ghost is not performing legitimacy as cover for his criminal ambitions. He genuinely wants the clean life. He genuinely believes in the vision of what he could build if he could just get free of what he built first. The problem, and it is the problem the entire series is built around, is that he keeps trying to use the old world to fund and protect the new one, convinced that each compromise is temporary, that each return to Ghost is the last one, that each deal made in darkness is in service of the light he is moving toward. It never works. Not because the universe is conspiring against him, not because his enemies are too powerful, but because the logic is fundamentally broken. You cannot build something clean on something dirty and expect the dirt not to follow. Every dollar from the drug trade that flows into truth carries with it the relationships, the obligations, the threats, and the violence that produced it. Every favor owed to Tommy, to the Jimenez cartel, to the political machinery that protected him in the shadows, every one of those obligations reaches into his legitimate world eventually and pulls. The foundation determines the structure. Ghost could never accept this. He kept believing he could separate the floors of the building from the ground it stood on. The application to your own life is not about crime. It is about the broader principle of foundation integrity. The shortcuts you take early, the corners cut, the relationships compromised, the values quietly set aside in service of getting somewhere faster, do not stay in the past. They follow you forward and they surface at the moments of greatest consequence, when you are least equipped to deal with them. Whatever you are building, the question worth asking early and honestly is whether the foundation it stands on is one you would be comfortable having visible. Because eventually, everything becomes visible. Ghost learned this too late. You do not have to. One of the most precise and most painful things Power dramatizes is the destruction that flows from Ghost's inability to choose, fully and finally, where his loyalty lies. He loves Angela and he loves Tasha. He is committed to Tommy and he is committed to legitimacy. He wants to protect his children and he wants to protect his empire. He is loyal to everyone in a way that means he is fully loyal to no one, and the people around him, the ones who have built their lives and their safety around the assumption of his complete commitment, pay for that division in ways that accumulate across 6 seasons into something devastating. Tommy Egan is perhaps the most instructive character in the show precisely because of the contrast he presents. Tommy is many things: violent, impulsive, emotionally volatile, but he is never divided. When Tommy is with you, he is entirely with you. When he turns against you, it is with the same totality. there is a clarity to Tommy's loyalty that Ghost, for all his superior intelligence and strategic sophistication, can never match, because Ghost is always calculating, always managing multiple commitments, always trying to give everyone enough of himself to keep the whole architecture standing. Tommy never calculates loyalty. He simply gives it or withholds it, completely. And in the world the show inhabits, that totality, however dangerous, commands a kind of trust that Ghost's divided intelligence never earns from anyone. The lesson here extends well beyond the specific world of power into any domain where you are managing competing commitments. In your career, your relationships, your creative work, where are you giving partial loyalty to multiple things in a way that means none of them get the full weight of your commitment? Where are you keeping options open at the cost of going deep? The most significant achievements in any domain, the careers, the relationships, the bodies of work that actually endure, are almost always the products of complete commitment rather than strategic hedging. Ghost's intelligence was extraordinary. His inability to commit it fully to any single thing was what made it ultimately insufficient. Decide what you are actually building. Then build it without the exits. Ghost is, by almost any measure, the most intelligent character in power. He reads people with precision, plans ahead with sophistication, navigates complex political and criminal environments with a fluency that most of the people around him can barely follow. And yet he is outmaneuvered, repeatedly and fatally, by people who are not his intellectual equals, by Tommy's raw emotional intelligence, by Tariq's cold patience, by the accumulated resentment of people he underestimated because they did not match his particular brand of brilliance. The show is quietly but consistently making an argument about the limits of a certain kind of intelligence, the analytical, strategic, self-congratulatory kind that mistake its own sophistication for invulnerability. Ghost's fatal blind spot is that he consistently underestimates the people closest to him. He sees the moves on the board, but he repeatedly misreads the emotional reality of the people making them, what they are actually feeling, what they are actually capable of when pushed to the limit, what they are quietly building in the spaces he is not watching. Tasha is a prime example. Ghost spends years managing Tasha, calculating her tolerance, assuming her compliance, and fundamentally failing to see her as a person with her own agency, her own intelligence, and her own limits. By the time he recognizes what she has become and what she is capable of, it is far too late to adjust. The practical lesson is about the relationship between analytical intelligence and emotional intelligence, and about the specific arrogance that high analytical intelligence can produce when it is not balanced by genuine curiosity about the inner lives of others. The most dangerous people in any environment are not always the most visibly impressive ones. They are often the ones who have been quietly watching, quietly building, quietly accumulating grievance or capability in the background while the smartest person in the room was focused on the board rather than the players. Develop the habit of taking people seriously at the level of what they feel, not just what they say or what they appear to be capable of. Ghost never learned this. It is what killed him. Ghost spends the entirety of Power's run building two reputations simultaneously, and watching each of them become a liability for the other. In the legitimate world, he is James St. Patrick, visionary entrepreneur, community investor, aspiring political figure. In the criminal world, he is Ghost, ruthless, untouchable, a man whose name alone moves product and commands fear. Both reputations are real. Both are built on genuine qualities and genuine actions sustained over years. And both, at critical moments, become the mechanism of his destruction, because the existence of Ghost makes every aspiration of James St. Patrick permanently fragile, and the aspirations of James St. Patrick make Ghost perpetually vulnerable to anyone willing to expose them. The show dramatizes something about reputation that most people understand in the abstract but consistently underestimate in practice: that reputation is not a single thing. It is a constellation of perceptions held by different people in different contexts, and the work of maintaining it is the work of ensuring that constellation remains coherent, that what different people believe about you is compatible enough that no single exposure can collapse the entire structure. Ghost's reputations were not compatible. They were mutually destructive. Every advancement in one world increased his exposure in the other. He understood this intellectually. He never resolved it practically. The lesson for your own life is about coherence. Not the performance of a single identity across all contexts. People are legitimately different in different environments, and that is healthy. but the deeper question of whether the different versions of you that exist in different contexts are fundamentally compatible, or whether you are managing incompatibilities that will eventually surface in ways you cannot control. The gaps between who you are at work and who you are at home, between what you project publicly and what you do privately, between the values you claim and the choices you make when no one is watching, each of those gaps is a vulnerability. Ghost's gaps were extreme. But the principle applies at every scale. Build one reputation. Make it real. The architecture of a single coherent identity is far more durable than the most sophisticated management of multiple incompatible ones. The deepest and most painful truth that power tells, the one that the entire series builds toward, is about the cost of refusal. Ghost has multiple genuine opportunities to exit. Real moments where the path out is available, where the legitimate life he claims to want is within reach, where the decision to walk away from Ghost and become James St. Patrick permanently is a real option rather than a fantasy. He does not take them. Not because he cannot. Because some part of him, the part he never fully examines or admits to, does not want to. The identity of Ghost, the power, the fear, the particular aliveness that comes from operating at the edge, is something he cannot relinquish even when he has everything he needs to do so. This is the show's most honest and most universally applicable observation. The lives, the identities, the worlds we refuse to leave are not always ones we are trapped in. Often, they are ones we are choosing, quietly, without acknowledging the choice, constructing reasons why the exit is not yet possible while continuing to live in a place we could leave if we were willing to pay the cost of leaving. The comfort of the familiar, even when the familiar is destroying you, is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. Ghost was addicted not to the drug trade but to being Ghost. To the version of himself that the drug trade required and produced. Giving that up meant becoming someone smaller, in his own perception, than who he had built himself to be. And that smallness, the prospect of it, was what he could never accept. The question this leaves for you is one worth sitting with seriously. What are you refusing to leave that you are telling yourself you are simply not yet ready to leave? The relationship, the career, the identity, the version of yourself that once served you and no longer does. What are you holding on to not because the exit is genuinely unavailable but because the exit requires you to become someone different from who you currently are? Ghost's refusal cost him everything, including his life. The cost of your own refusals may be less dramatic. But they are costs nonetheless, paid quietly, daily, in the accumulated price of a life that cannot move forward because it will not let go of what is behind it. Ghost did not die because he was not smart enough or not powerful enough or not capable enough. He died because he could never be fully honest with Tasha, with Tommy, with Angela, with his children, and most fatally with himself about what he actually wanted, what he was actually willing to sacrifice, and what the life he was living was actually costing everyone it touched. His intelligence was real. His vision was real. His love, in its complicated and insufficient way, was real. None of it was enough, because none of it was ever fully aligned. The 5 lessons drawn from his story are not instructions in what to avoid. They are maps of a territory that most ambitious people will recognize, the tension between the world that made you and the world you are trying to build, between the loyalties that got you here and the commitments that will take you further, between the identity you have constructed and the one you are capable of becoming. Ghost navigated that territory with extraordinary ability and catastrophic self-deception in equal measure. You have the same territory in front of you. The difference is that you can see the map before you start walking. What you do with that visibility is entirely up to you.